And now we are moving on to the student pitch presentations, which is a slightly different format. We'll have different groups now, and each of those groups will have 8 minutes to explain their project. I think it's great that we do not only have established companies here today, but also can have a look at what those new student projects that are going on constantly really tell us and really yield. We are going to start right now with Monika Dumanic, Alexander Mantler, and Alexander Mantler from the team Parrot. Call me by your need, please.
So good afternoon, everyone. This is the sound that nurses call every day multiple times because that's the sound when the patient needs something. There's a nurse call system in every hospital. Usually it's not like big like this, but much smaller and everywhere, in a bathroom, everywhere patients go, so that they can signal if they need something, usually for emergencies. But whatever the patient needs, it's only this one button they can press. And nurses always have to regard it as an emergency because they don't know, is it urgent or not, because there's no additional information to this button. They have no clue what's going on. The patient could have fallen out of the bed in the bathroom, and it could be that the patient is just thirsty. So every time these alarms go off, it's in the whole hospital ward. Every nurse is called to this patient. And they always have to stop what they're just doing, caring for the patient they're just working on, and go to the other one that has pressed the alarm. This is an increase in stress level and also really inefficient because for one request the patient has, the nurse usually has to come twice into the room. First get there, ask what is the need, and then usually get something to please this need. And sometimes it also happens that it's just a false alarm because the patient has this device lying in the bed and just kind of rolls onto it, or it's an accident. But a nurse still has to stop what she's doing and at least turn off the alarm. We looked into what the most frequent alarms are, and my colleague will take over for this.
Well, in 48% of all nursing calls, the patients need positioning assistance. In Austria, there are 3 occupational nursing groups that may assist the patient in this case. In 18% of the calls, the patients are in pain, also need their pain medication, which is prescribed through the physicians, or have questions regarding to their pain medication. In 11% of the calls, the patient needs assistance to reach the toilet or the bathroom. In 8%, the patient wants to, or needs the television to be adjusted, needs something like tissues, or is thirsty. Also, 7% of the calls are because patients are annoyed of machine beeping. As you can count, these are 92%. The other 8% are various questions or false alarms. All of these are not regarded as emergencies. So, we tried to invent Parrot. Parrot is a communication system that establishes communication with the smartphone or tablet devices used by the patients and the hospital caregivers. We provide information, we prioritize information and inform the healthcare workers. We introduce efficiency, we reduce the alarms because the patient already can communicate with the healthcare worker, and we enhance well-being of the healthcare worker and also of the patients.
Well, basically, we wanted to do this on the devices that every one of us uses every day these days, and also make the patients and healthcare professionals use their own device because then it's an affordable option to use. I will walk you through our pilot prototype that we have now. If you have a QR code scanner on your phone, you can scan this QR code and be the patient and try this out yourself, or later on you can come to our booth. So usually we aimed on having a login screen first where you can choose whether you're a patient or a healthcare professional. Let's say we're patients. So the first screen you get to is the one with all the 6 major requests patients usually have. You can choose position, pain, toilet, medication, thirst, or you just have a general question. You can also press emergency if you don't feel well, if something's happening. Of course, this is just an add-on to the nurse call system that exists everywhere in the hospital. And you can choose other if you have a customized question you want to type in. Also, in the nav bar at the bottom, you can check your own personal data, also some vital signs. You have one box for your schedule. If you have therapy scheduled, your surgery, you can check it out and see when it's happening. So when you have visitors coming, you can tell them when you have therapies, for instance. You also have one icon, which is requests. There you can see what have you requested, and the healthcare professional can also answer to them, which is quite nice, we think. Also a settings icon where you can choose your language or also have some customized settings as usual. If we now assume we're the nurse, we log in as a healthcare worker, and usually at the beginning of the shift, it's quite empty because there are no pending requests, but this changes fast. Here we have like all the pending requests that you can see as the home screen, and also a bottom nav bar where you can update your requests. Of course, they're also updated automatically, but if you're like impatient. You have one icon for accepted requests over the day, so you can actually see what requests you've answered to the whole day over. You can also deny requests, because if you're just working on a patient, and usually you know your colleagues and you know who is doing what, it's still forwarded to another colleague, so the patient is not left alone. And also a settings icon. So let's assume patient just had surgery, is in pain, and he has 3 cycles of medication each day. And now he is having severe pain, and it's still 1 hour until the cycle. He can press the pain button, and what happens then is the nurse instantly receives this pain notification. She knows, or she or he knows, that it's in room number 14 at bed 2 and the name of the patient, as well as the time of the request. Now, if we look at the speech bubble, there's also an option for automated answers to the patient, because when you're a patient, you're sitting on needles, you want something to happen. And this way, the nurse can at least give an automated answer that something will happen soon. I'll be there in 5 minutes if you're thirsty. I'll be there as soon as possible if you're in pain, because then you get instantly an answer in your request icon, and you see a notification, and you can check it out. Okay, my nurse has seen it. She's probably just getting the medication or consulting with my doctor, and she'll be right there. So this is also a way to comfort the patient, which is really important. This is pretty much a small overview what we have implemented in our prototype. We'd love your input into it. So come to our booth. This is the team, and we'd love to see what your insights are and your perspectives on for our further development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It has already been mentioned there are 5 booths at the back of the room. You probably already have seen it. But still, are there questions right now?
Hi. Wonderful idea. Sounds great. Did you think of how or where are the limits to apply such a system truly in a hospital? There's probably some sort of data security problems and a lot of other issues around that area. Did you think of those limitations and how we could overcome those problems?
Yes, we of course been talking about this, but as this is a prototype, we're like, let's just try it out, get ideas of healthcare professionals. We did interviews and just ask whether it's reasonable at all. But of course, data security and everything is a big issue, and we will consult healthcare professionals really to see, okay, what would you suggest? Do you think it's feasible? It was just a first idea, and it was well taken by healthcare workers like nurses and other staff. So this is, of course, an issue that we have still to address, of course.
Thank you. I think it's also very interesting. My question is related to the question already. Is there the feedback from nurses that they don't want to use it because they can get measured?
Yes, in one of our interviews, one nurse was also concerned about that. She was like, okay, this is like a control system, but it's on a personal phone, it's on her device so far, so not really that like a doctor or a boss can say, okay, you just responded to 25 requests, the other one has 40, you don't do your work well. So of course it's a concern of some because nowadays our data is just everywhere and controlling everything. But it shouldn't be like this. So this is not what we intend, and it should also not be spread. It's just for you to know.
Great, so thanks again. Great project, thank you.